It is terrifyingly funny how love arrives exactly when you are least prepared, like a scandal headline you never wanted to read but cannot look away from. And that was me, the invisible nobody who suddenly collided with the brightest star in Hollywood. When people speak about movie stars, they imagine red carpets, champagne flutes, and flashes of cameras, never the suffocating loneliness behind tinted glass. But I saw him, truly saw him, before I even wanted to. And he saw me in a way that felt both devastating and impossible. It began one cold November night in New York. The city was buzzing with lights, taxis, and the endless chatter of people chasing dreams that never quite materialized. I was working late, exhausted from my shift at the small bookstore on 8th Avenue. The last thing I expected was to nearly knock down a man running across the street in a rush. His cap pulled low, scarf covering most of his face. Except when he looked up, I froze. It was him, Adrian Hale, the Adrian Hale, America's most unattainable heartthrob. His face splashed across billboards in Times Square, the man whose name alone could sell out theaters. And he was standing in front of me, completely out of breath, with eyes that looked less like diamonds and more like storm clouds, wild, desperate, almost pleading. "Please," he muttered, voice low and ragged. "Don't scream. Don't, just please." For a moment, I almost laughed. Who the hell did he think I was? Some crazed fan ready to faint on the sidewalk. But then I noticed the shadows across the street, cameras flashing from the alley, and the way he pulled his coat tighter, as if the city itself wanted to swallow him whole. So instead of screaming, I rolled my eyes. "Relax. You're safe." That was the beginning. The collision of two worlds that should have never touched. Mine, quiet and ordinary, and his, unbearably bright and suffocating. Adrian found excuses to return. At first, it was the bookstore show up late, hiding behind sunglasses that fooled no one. He'd wander through the aisles pretending to browse, his fingers tracing spines of books he never read. And somehow he always found me. "Recommend me something," he'd say, as though I were his secret cure. At first, I was cautious, maybe even resentful. Why me? Why drag me into his orbit when I knew the heat would burn? But his presence was magnetic, and I couldn't deny it. There was something intoxicating about the way his walls crumbled when no one else was watching. He was supposed to be untouchable. But in the quiet corners of the bookstore, away from flashing cameras and screaming fans, he wasn't a star. He was just Adrian. A man who laughed too hard at bad jokes, who confessed that he couldn't cook to save his life, who admitted that sometimes the silence of his penthouse was louder than the chaos of a movie set. And me? I was stupid enough to fall. The first time he touched me, it wasn't romantic. He had been laughing, really laughing, head thrown back, and he reached out to steady himself on my arm. It was nothing, a reflex, but it lit a fire under my skin. His hand lingered just a second too long. I knew then, and I think he knew too. From that moment, the air between us shifted. Conversations were loaded with pauses, with unspoken questions neither of us dared to voice. Every glance stretched into something heavier, and I hated it almost as much as I craved it. Because how could I, an ordinary nobody, be anything but a temporary distraction to a man like him? The scandal broke before I could even process what we had. A grainy photo. Adrian in disguise, stepping into the bookstore, his hand brushing against mine as I held the door. The tabloids exploded. Overnight, I was branded. The mysterious boy, the alleged lover, the downfall of America's golden star. I wanted to disappear. My phone rang nonstop. Reporters hounded me. Customers stopped coming to the store. I had no shield against the storm. Adrian came to me then, furious and protective, insisting he'd fix it. "I'll make it go away," he promised, voice breaking. But I didn't want to be fixed. I wanted to be seen, not erased. "You don't get it?" I snapped, the weight of the world pressing on my chest. "This isn't your script, Adrian. You can't control me. You can't." And then he kissed me. Not the soft kind of kiss that makes the world blush. No, it was raw, desperate, breaking. Like he was drowning and I was his only breath. For one terrifying, beautiful moment, I let myself believe. That was only the beginning of our war against the cameras, against the industry, against every voice that screamed we didn't belong, against ourselves. Because loving him was both the most natural and most dangerous thing I had ever done. And little did I know, it would cost us more than either of us was prepared to pay. You don't realize how cruel America can be until your face is plastered across gossip magazines you never agreed to pose for. The photo of Adrian and me at the bookstore was everywhere within hours. Tabloids sold it as scandal, fans dissected it as betrayal, and strangers reduced my entire existence to 2 words, the boy. I became a meme before I even had the chance to defend myself. Some called me lucky. Others called me a parasite. None of them knew my name, and yet they all claimed to know exactly who I was, the reason their star was falling. I wanted to hate Adrian for it. I wanted to curse the universe for letting our lives intersect. But the truth was, I couldn't get the feel of his lips off mine, couldn't erase the way he looked at me that night like I was the first person who had ever seen him. Not the actor, not the legend, but the man. Still, desire was not armor. And love, if that was what it was not enough to silence the world. Adrian insisted on seeing me, despite his agent's threats, despite his publicist screaming down his phone. He came at night, hooded and unguarded, slipping into my tiny apartment as though stepping into another universe. The first night after the scandal broke, he found me sitting on the floor of my kitchen, surrounded by unopened takeout boxes and unanswered calls from my parents. I hadn't gone to work. I hadn't done anything but sit in the silence, suffocating under a spotlight I never asked for. He knelt in front of me, his knees brushing against mine. Say something, he begged, his voice hoarse. Scream at me, hate me, just don't shut me out. I looked at him then, really looked at him. His hair was a mess under his cap, his eyes red from exhaustion. He wasn't the Adrian Hale America adored. He was just a man on the verge of breaking. And I couldn't break him, not when I already knew how fragile he was behind the mask. So I whispered, stay. He stayed. Night after night, as the outside world feasted on our story, Adrian created a new one inside the 4 walls of my apartment. He cooked formidably. The pasta came out overcooked, the sauce watery, but he grinned sheepishly when I teased him, and my laughter filled the cracks inside my chest. He read me lines from scripts, his voice shifting from playful to serious, and sometimes I caught him watching me instead of the page, as though he was memorizing the way my eyes flickered in the lamplight. We built a fragile sanctuary out of borrowed time. But sanctuaries don't last forever. The calls grew harsher. Adrian's agent, Carter, was relentless. One night, I overheard Adrian on the phone, his voice raw with fury. You don't own me, he shouted. You don't get to decide who I... He stopped abruptly when he realized I was listening. When he hung up, I asked quietly, who were you talking to? He hesitated, then said, Carter. He wants me to end this. End us, I corrected. Adrian flinched. The silence between us was heavier than any insult. Because we both knew the truth, Carter wasn't wrong. The industry wasn't ready for Adrian Hale to fall in love with another man. Studios would pull contracts, fans would riot, money would vanish. And 2 was expendable. The breaking point came weeks later. Adrian had a premiere in Los Angeles, the first major public event since the scandal. Carter insisted he attend with a female co-star, a convenient distraction to kill the rumors. When Adrian showed up at my apartment the night before his flight, guilt was written all over his face. They want me to take her, he said quietly. Just for the cameras. Just toes things. I laughed bitterly. Ease things? You mean erase me? No, he said quickly, stepping forward, grabbing my hands. His grip was desperate, almost trembling. You're the only real thing I've ever had. But I need time. Please, just let me handle this. The cruelest part was that I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be the one who waited, who trusted, who proved love could outlast the noise. But deep down, I feared I was nothing more than a secret he would lock away whenever the cameras turned on. Go, I whispered, pulling my hands from his. Do what you have to do. He left, and I watched the premiere from the glow of my television, my chest hollowing out with every flash of the red carpet. Adrian Hale, dazzling in a tuxedo, his arm around her waist. She smiled at him, perfect and radiant, and though his smile didn't quite reach his eyes, the cameras didn't care. The headlines screamed, "Hollywood's golden couple." I turned off the TV, and for the first time since meeting him, I let myself cry. Days turned into weeks. Adrian called, but I didn't answer. Texts piled up, unread. I told myself it was better this way, that I needed to reclaim the quiet life I once had. Except the quiet no longer felt like peace, it felt like absence, like a wound that refused to close. At the bookstore, customers whispered. Some avoided me. Others stared, curious or judgmental. My boss offered me time off, but I knew it was his polite way of saying the attention was bad for business. Everywhere I turned, I was either invisible or infamous, and I hated both. Adrian finally forced his way back into my life one stormy night, weeks after the premiere. I heard the pounding on my door before I saw him, soaked from the rain, hair plastered to his forehead. When I opened the door, he looked at me like a man starved. "Enough," he said, voice breaking. "I can't keep pretending out there when all I want is to be here, with you." I wanted to slam the door. I wanted to scream at him for choosing fame over me, for letting me drown while he smiled for the cameras. But the words that came out were sharper, colder. "You think this is a movie, Adrian? That you can just run through the rain, say the right line, and fix everything?" His chest rose and fell rapidly, his jaw tight. "No. But I know I'll lose everything if I don't fight for you." "And what about your career?" I snapped. "Your fans? The world that worships you, what happens when they turn on you?" He stepped closer, water dripping from his coat, his eyes fierce. "Then let them, because none of it matters if I can't have this. If I can't have you." The words lodged in my throat, tearing me apart, because I wanted so badly to believe him. But could love really survive the weight of an entire world telling us it shouldn't exist? That night, for the first time, Adrian didn't kiss me. He didn't beg or argue. He just sat on the edge of my couch, rain-soaked and exhausted, and said softly, "Tell me to go and I will, but if you don't, I'll stay, as long as it takes." I didn't tell him to go, but I didn't ask him to stay either. The next morning, the storm hadn't lifted, neither outside nor inside me. Adrian was still there, asleep on the couch, his face peaceful in a way I'd never seen. No cameras, no scripts, no masks, just him. For a fleeting second, I allowed myself the dangerous thought, maybe we could make this work. Maybe love was enough. And then my phone buzzed. A new headline, a leaked photo. Adrian at my door last night, drenched in rain, his face illuminated by the streetlight. The caption was merciless. "The mystery boy returns, Adrian's secret affair confirmed." The world had found us again. And I knew, with bone-deep certainty, that the battle was only beginning. America loves its stars, but it loves destroying them even more. The leaked photo of Adrian outside my apartment lit a firestorm the tabloids couldn't resist. It wasn't just speculation, Anna Maria, it was confirmation. Adrian Hale, America's golden boy, was in love with another man. And that man was me. The backlash was immediate. Studio executives released carefully worded statements. Brand sponsors reconsidered contracts. News anchors debated my existence as if I were a disease contaminating Hollywood's brightest light. Social media became a battlefield. Fans split between those defending Adrian's right to love and those demanding his exile. And me? I became public enemy number one. The first time I saw my parents after the scandal, I wished I hadn't. They lived in a quiet suburb in New Jersey, far from the chaos of New York, but the scandal had reached them anyway. My mother opened the door with eyes swollen from crying. My father's jaw was set like stone. Inside, the air was suffocating. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" my father asked, his voice low and dangerous. I swallowed hard. "I fell in love. With him?" he spat, as if Adrian's name was poison. "With a man? With a celebrity?" Do you realize what people are saying about us? About you? My mother's hands trembled as she poured tea no one drank. Sweetheart, she whispered, this life isn't safe. They'll eat you alive. And him too. I wanted to argue, to scream that love wasn't a sin, that their shame was misplaced. But instead, I sat in silence because part of me feared they were right. When I left that night, my father didn't say goodbye. Adrian, on the other hand, fought harder than I expected. Carter, his agent, nearly tore the apartment door off its hinges one evening, storming in with fury. You're killing him, Carter snarled, jabbing a finger at me. Do you understand? Years of work, millions of dollars, an entire career dragging it down because you can't keep your hands off each other. Adrian stepped between us, his voice sharp. Enough. If you're here to insult him, you can leave. Carter's eyes flared. I'm here to save you. But if you want to ruin everything for some bookstore boy, then fine. Don't say I didn't warn you when the studios drop you. The door slammed, and the echo left the apartment trembling. I turned to Adrian, my chest tight. He's right. I'm ruining you. Adrian grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to meet his eyes. You're the only thing in my life that isn't fake. If I lose everything else, I'll survive. But not if I lose you. His conviction should have been enough. But fear was a parasite gnawed at me, whispering that no love could withstand the weight of a nation's disapproval. The real betrayal, though, came not from the tabloids or the industry, but from someone I thought was safe. My best friend, Noah, had been my confidant for years. We'd grown up together, shared secrets, endured heartbreaks. He was the first person I told about Adrian, back when everything was still innocent, fragile, hidden. But when the storm hit, Noah changed. He stopped answering my calls, avoided me in public. And then, one morning, a magazine ran an exclusive interview with a close friend of the mystery boy. Noah had sold me out. He told them everything. How Adrian visited me at the bookstore. How he stayed overnight at my apartment. He even told them about my parents' reaction. Reading his words felt like swallowing glass. When I confronted him, his excuse was pitiful. I needed the money, he muttered, eyes downcast. And maybe people deserve to know the truth. The truth? I laughed bitterly. You mean your version of it? The one they paid you for? Noah's silence was answer enough. I walked away that day, feeling the last piece of my old life crumble. Friends gone, family distant, privacy obliterated. All that remained was Adrian, and I wasn't sure if that was salvation or damnation. The pressure mounted. Adrian lost 2 major roles within weeks. One studio cited creative differences, but everyone knew the truth. Advertisers cut ties. Fan pages burned his posters. The internet christened me the curse. I begged him to let go. You deserve better than this? I whispered one night, tears soaking his shirt. You deserve someone who won't destroy you. Adrian cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears. Better than you? There is no better. And then he kissed me, gentle and unshakable, like a vow. But the world wasn't done testing us. One night, as we left a quiet restaurant on the Lower East Side, we were ambushed. Paparazzi swarmed like vultures, flashes blinding, voices shouting cruel questions. Adrian, are you gay? Is he your boyfriend? Are you ashamed of hiding it? Did he use you for fame? Adrian's hand found mine instinctively, gripping tight. For a second, I almost pulled away, fear screaming at me to run, to disappear. But his grip anchored me, defiant, unyielding. He turned to the cameras, his voice steady. Yes, he's with me, and I'm not ashamed. The world erupted. That night, chaos exploded online. Hashtags trended. News anchors debated. Adrian Hale had come out not with a press release, not with a carefully managed interview, but in the middle of a storm, holding my hand. Some praised him for courage. Others condemned him for betrayal. The divide cut deeper than ever. And yet, amid the noise, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time, I wasn't his secret. I wasn't the boy. I was his. But victories always come with a price. The studio terminated his contract the next morning. Carter refused to answer his calls. His bank account bled faster than either of us could patch it. We sat in my apartment that night, surrounded by silence heavier than any words. "Maybe this was a mistake," I whispered. Adrian looked at me, his eyes raw. "Loving you has never been a mistake. The mistake was hiding it." And in that moment I believed him. Even as the world outside sharpened its knives, even as fear gnawed at my ribs, I believed him. But the question remained. Belief wasn't enough. Could we survive the cost of being visible? Could love truly hold against the relentless storm? Adrian reached for my hand, threading his fingers through mine. His voice was steady, though his eyes shimmered with exhaustion. "If we're going to burn," he said softly, "then let's burn together." And for the first time since the scandal began, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a choice. His choice. Our war wasn't over, but maybe, just maybe, you could win it. Love isn't measured by the easy days. It's measured by the nights when the whole world tells you to give up, and you still choose each other. Adrian and I were tested in ways I never imagined. After his public declaration, the backlash intensified. Protesters showed up outside his penthouse. A billboard advertising his latest film was vandalized. Interviews were canceled. Talk shows debated whether his career was over. For me, anonymity was gone. Strangers spat at me in the street. A man shoved me on the subway, hissing that I'd ruined a real man's life. The bookstore fired me under the excuse of reducing staff. Every corner of my old life crumbled, leaving nothing but the wreckage of who I used to be. And yet, Adrian stayed. At night, when exhaustion painted shadows beneath his eyes, he held me as if I were the last safe place on earth. When I doubted us, he reminded me with kisses soft and insistent. When I broke down, he whispered promises he didn't know how to keep, but meant with every fiber of his being. But even love has limits. The breaking point came not from the public, but from within Adrian's own family. One Sunday morning, he asked me to come with him to his parents' home in Connecticut. I hesitated, afraid of stepping into another battlefield, but he insisted. "They need to meet you," he said. "Not the scandal, not the headlines. You." The Hale estate was as intimidating as its Nemean endless stretch of manicured lawn, white columns, and windows that gleamed like judgmental eyes. His mother greeted us with forced politeness, her smile tight, her gaze calculating. His father didn't bother with pleasantries. "This is him?" Mr. Hale asked, voice sharp as glass. Adrian stiffened. "Dad, no," his father's voice cut through the air. "You've humiliated this family enough. Throwing away your career is one thing, but dragging this boy here? For what? To prove you've lost your mind." I wanted to vanish. Every word was a knife, and Adrian stood in the line of fire willingly. "This boy," Adrian said, his voice low but steady, "is the man I love." The room froze. His mother gasped. His father's face reddened with fury. "Do you realize what you're saying? Do you realize what you've done to us? To your legacy?" Adrian didn't flinch. "My legacy is mine to build. And it starts with him." For a heartbeat, I thought I might collapse. No award speech, no scripted line could have carried more weight than those words. His father stormed out. His mother whispered something about needing time, but her eyes said everything. Disappointment, fear, shame. We left in silence. On the drive back, I stared out the window, my chest tight. "You didn't have to do that," I murmured. "Yes," Adrian replied softly. "I did." The weeks that followed blurred into survival. Money tightened. Adrian's team fractured. The world still debated us daily. And yet something shifted. We weren't just scandal anymore. We were a story. LGBTQ activists began speaking out, praising Adrian's courage. Articles shifted from ridicule to reflection. Younger fans flooded social media with messages of hope, saying his bravery gave them strength to come out, to live, to love. Slowly, painfully, the narrative changed. Studios that once rejected him reconsidered, sensing a new kind of power in his honesty. Independent directors reached out, eager to cast him in roles that weren't about perfection, but truth. And me? I began writing. At first, it was just scribbles in a notebook, journal entries, fragments of conversations, memories too heavy to carry in silence. But Adrian encouraged me. "Your voice matters," he said. "Tell them what it's like. Tell them the truth." So I did. I wrote about us. Not the glossy version the tabloids painted, but the messy, painful, beautiful truth. A small magazine published my essay. Then a larger one asked for more. Slowly, I discovered that my words had power too. The turning point came one spring evening, nearly 6 months after the scandal first broke. Adrian was invited to speak at a charity gala for LGBTQ youth in Los Angeles. He asked me to come, though we both knew the cameras would devour us. I almost said no. Fear still gnawed at me, whispering of headlines and hate. But when I looked at Adrian, his hand outstretched, his eyes steady, I realized I didn't want to hide anymore. So I said yes. We walked into the ballroom hand in hand. For a moment, silence swept the crowd. And then, applause. Not scattered, not hesitant applause that built like a wave, filling the room with something I hadn't felt in months. Acceptance. Adrian spoke with a voice both fragile and strong. He talked about masks, about loneliness, about the price of silence. And then he looked at me, right there in front of everyone, and said, "I thought love would cost me everything, but it gave me the only thing that matters." I felt tears sting my eyes, not from pain this time, but from the terrifying beauty of being seen. That night, after the gala, we stood on the rooftop of our hotel, the city glittering beneath us. "You realize," I teased softly, "you just outed us to half of America. Again." Adrian chuckled, pulling me close. "Good. Let them know." The wind carried the scent of spring, warm and alive. For once, the world felt less like an enemy and more like a possibility. He tilted his forehead against mine, his voice barely a whisper. "We survived." I smiled, the weight on my chest finally lifting. "We did." And then, with the city as our witness, he kissed me. Not desperate this time, not frantic. Just steady, sure, endless. A kiss that wasn't about surviving anymore. It was about living. In the end, love didn't fix everything. Adrian's career would never return to what it was. My relationship with my parents remained strained. The world still had its knives. But love gave us something stronger than perfection. It gave us truth. And truth, once spoken, cannot be silenced. Months later, I published my first book, a memoir about our story. The title was simple, Captivated. In the dedication I wrote, "For Adrian, who taught me that even stars can be human, and that sometimes, when the world tries to burn you down, love can be the match that lights the way." One summer evening, as the sun set over New York, Adrian and I returned to the bookstore where it all began. The shelves were the same, the air smelled of old paper, and for a moment it felt like stepping back in time. Adrian reached for my hand, his smile soft. "Do you ever regret it?" I thought of the storms, the betrayals, the nights we thought we'd lose everything. And then I thought of his hand in mine, the rooftop kisses, the way he looked at me like I was more than enough. "Not for a second," I said, and together we walked into the future. Not as scandal, not as shame, but as love. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.